All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Matt Wasserlauf. Matt, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Kevin, so excited to be here.
Yeah, and you're like right on the you just got home from a trip. Where and tell where did you go? Because you just went to
I
a
was
beautiful
in
part of the world.
beautiful Cannes, France, the French Riviera, as it's referred to. It was beautiful. It was sunny, a little hot, but
Yeah,
no complaints. It was a great week.
that is
Uh,
awesome.
that's a great week.
I saw some of the stuff you posted on Facebook, and I'm like, man, that looks like a really nice place for sure.
It really was.
It's
It really was. No complaints. It was the Cannes Lions Festival, which
okay.
brought together all the people in my industry, the digital media industry.
Okay. Very cool. Well, I want to start. I just want to give a shout out to Jen Crompton because Jen, she's your PR person and stuff. And
Yes.
my assistant and I, we had put this listing on this website called Quoted that another friend of mine who is a podcaster had told me about. And Jen replied to that, and she, bless her, she is like she's really good at talking you up, Matt.
That's
And
great. No, I appreciate hearing it, and she really is. So
yeah. She replied to that and sent me just a really great message. And I'm like, man, Jen, after what you shared, yes, I definitely want to meet Matt and get to know him. And so you and I, we've already, we met before, we had a conversation. I'm like, yes, Matt, I am absolutely in for this. Let's do a podcast interview. And so here we are. And like you, I too have really been looking forward to this. And what I want to do is I just want to start by turning it over to you, Matt. I want you to be able to share about what you guys are doing, who you serve, what inspires you most about the
okay.
impact you guys are making in the world, and even give us some of the backstory of how you got into doing what you do. Because I know every entrepreneur, and I know you've got an amazing backstory.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, when I leave this earth, Kevin, on my tombstone, it's going to say the first guy to put TV commercials on the web. That's my claim to fame. 25 years ago, I took commercials from Coca-Cola and Procter and Gamble, and I took those VHS tapes, those beta tapes, digitized them, and put them on the internet. So that was the beginning of all this fun. Today, the industry is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, it is huge, and everybody knows about Hulu and Peacock and
Yep.
Paramount Plus and all these great streaming services. I was there in the beginning of this very exciting new wave that is streaming
Yeah.
video advertising. So that's who I am. I'm most excited about what we're doing today. I started Blockboard 6.5 years ago with
Okay.
my partners, Tarun Yadav and Jim DePalma. And the three of us were looking to we wanted to solve a very big problem, the
Okay.
problem of ad fraud, digital ad fraud. That
Mhm.
number is $120 billion.
Wow.
$120 billion. And actually, that number comes from Pepsi. A guy named Zach Lane at Pepsi, who looks at all this stuff,
Mhm.
he said there's $120 billion of ad fraud. And I've known that because I was there in the beginning. I've watched this thing grow over the years. And I said, my legacy is going to be to fix that. And so 6.5 years ago, we set out to start Blockboard. Tarun Yadav, who's my co-founder and partner, built a platform on the blockchain,
Wow.
Ethereum blockchain.
Yep.
And what we have done is we pre-verify every ad call from Hulu and Peacock and Paramount Plus and Amazon. And we make sure that when we distribute that commercial, it's going to a real human being.
Okay.
That is how we are revolutionizing the digital media industry. And it's
Wow.
working. It's working famously. It's fun. We're delivering real value for our big marketing partners. And I mean, we're on the ride of a lifetime. That's
Yeah.
what we're doing.
Yeah. So I am, I'm a complete outsider looking at this, and I'm really fascinated too. And so, what are some of the ad fraud things that happen? How do entrepreneurs like us get frauded this way?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a lot of ways. I'll tell you, I mean, I'm getting emails. They call it phishing. I get these emails
Yeah, yeah,
that say, "Hey, Joe wants money, and you got to send me a check or send
yeah,
me."
yeah.
There's a million ways of fraud in digital, okay?
Mhm.
But we are focused on the $120 billion of ad fraud.
Yes, yes.
And what that is and what that looks like is a bot farm. Call it, people, and I've heard they're in Iceland, I've heard they're in Russia, but these people take our big streaming services, let's say Peacock,
Okay,
NBC's Peacock, and they mimic it. They mimic it with a site, a website that looks like Peacock. Might say peacock.com/ such and such and such and such.
mhm,
They put that mimicked website into these platforms that have automated digital advertising. They
okay.
insert it and it goes undetected. So that
Wow.
when somebody like Coca-Cola wants to run their ad on Peacock,
Mhm.
which is in very high demand,
Yep.
there's a lot of NFL football and great shows. They think they're buying Peacock and they're buying that bot farm in Iceland.
Wow. Wow.
$120 billion.
Unreal. So just completely wasted money.
And
Wow.
nobody knows. And
Yeah.
nobody's policing this. Nobody even knows how to police it. I mean, you look at these things that go on in Congress with, when the FTC is saying Google, yet you're a monopoly. They don't know how to analyze Google and its practices or any of these companies. They don't know how to look at that problem I just talked about and
Yeah.
say, you're a evildoer and you're stealing money. So these bot farms know this. They know no one is paying attention. No one knows how to reveal them. And they're making $120 billion.
Wow. 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 Well, you just gave me a little bit of insight and education there, Matt.
Yeah.
It's
Evidence is
wow.
incredible. It's really
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. So this is a really, really big problem for sure.
I put this up there with the largest fraud rings in the world.
Yeah.
I was watching 60 Minutes and I heard a big fraud ring involves banking, stealing money with fake thieves who steal old people's money by calling them and there's a lot of ways, but this is up there, maybe
Yeah.
number one in terms of
Okay.
fraud rings. Yep.
So let's say I'm a company and I'm investing pretty heavily in advertising and stuff. What are some of the telltale signs that I look for
Right.
that will get me thinking that, you know what, maybe I should reach out to Matt and just have a conversation?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been an easy process, what you just discussed. I mean, most of these advertisers work with pretty large ad firms, and those
Okay.
ad firms are not incentivized to tell their clients this is going on. And that's the maybe the biggest problem is because it's so big, there's a lot of companies that are making a lot of money on this, besides the bots,
Mhm.
these ad firms. And so they're not necessarily telling those clients that you need to really analyze this problem. So I have a hard job. I signed up for this and I'm willing to do it. But I would say for those marketers that start to learn that this is going on, and I'm talking to a number of them, to ask hard questions and say, where exactly are my ads running? Get a look at the transparency and do their best diligence. That's a start, maybe even better, Kevin, is looking at the hard results, not just where their ads are running. How are sales? Do you see an impact on your hard sales, on your leads, on your results? And if you're not seeing a correlation of your ad spend to sales, maybe testing other alternatives, looking at other ways to do it. So those would be a couple of my suggestions.
Yeah, yeah. I know, I come out of the direct response marketing world. And so, in that world, they are all about tracking ad performance and stuff, and they
Yes.
put tracking mechanisms in place. And
Yes.
so, somebody who's in the direct response world, I mean, maybe, if you have seen just a big drop in your response rates and stuff, that would be a good sign that, something might be going on here.
Yes.
And so, direct response marketers and people who are familiar with that form of marketing, now that you're sharing this, that could be a very real
And
problem
those
that's
have become
happening.
our biggest customers.
Yeah.
Before I started this, those direct response marketers said to me, your streaming doesn't work. I don't see sales. And I said, well, why don't you try our new platform? And all of a sudden they're seeing sales and leads, and they're like, what? Why have I never heard of you? This is amazing. How can we scale?
Yeah.
So those have become, in my first pitches went to the largest brands like P&G and Coca-Cola.
Okay.
And they were, oh, I'm not so sure I need this. When I went to the direct response advertisers, they said, well, it's never worked, but I'll give you a chance. And now those are our biggest customers.
That's
Direct.
awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Okay. Well, okay. So now that we've got some context set here, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit, and I want to dig into the relationship side of this. So I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of our listeners, Matt. And so, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And Matt, I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Oh, thanks, Kevin. Two people,
Okay.
two, my two partners at Blockboard is
Okay.
Jim DePalma and Tarun Yadav.
Okay.
Those two people have changed my life. So I'll start with Jim DePalma.
Okay.
Jim hired me at CBS, the Tiffany Network, one of the big three television networks that bring you, 60 Minutes and NFL sports.
Okay.
So 25 years ago, I was a TV guy. I worked at Warner Brothers and some other TV firms, and I saw what was happening on the internet. I was excited about what was happening on the internet, and he was hiring the first people at CBS.com, their website.
Wow.
So this famous TV network was now building websites,
Mm-hmm.
and he hired me. He gave me the chance. So that was the first way he changed my life.
Wow.
He was interested what experience I had on the internet, which was very limited. I didn't have much, and no one did, quite frankly. And he said, I'm going to give you a chance. And he even said when he hired me, Jim did, he said, I might have to hire over you. And that was the motivation I needed to say, I'm going to succeed for this guy. I'm going to show him what that looks like. So off we went. We put the first advertisers on CBS's, the TV network's websites, and off we went. Where he truly changed my life, though, is as a result of working for him, he became my mentor.
Okay.
Jim is about 20 years older than me. And he became my mentor. And so when I went off and started my first company 20 years ago, I called it BBE, for
Okay.
short for Broadband Enterprises. And I wanted to build a CBS network online. That was my goal, a TV network online. And BBE was that. It was my baby. And I remember getting it started. And I remember thinking, because I had never done that before, I said, Jim, shouldn't I be raising money? Shouldn't I go out there to the capital markets and get an investment so that I can really build this company? Thought for a minute, and he slowly looked back at me. He said, Matt, can you sell? I said, can I sell? Of course I could sell. I sold for you. You know I could sell. He goes, don't worry about raising money. Just go sell. And that advice changed my life, because rather than going out and raising money and being held to investors and their expectations and trying to scale a company to meet their needs, I built a company, BBE, that I owned, I sold, and I was able to scale, to my benefit. And it was all the difference that literally changed my life. And I remind Jim of that all the time. That little piece of advice was a game changer for me.
Yeah.
And so, over and beyond that, he's been there for me at every turn. He is now my partner at Blockboard. He runs the financial side of the house for us. And he is, just a very special human being who I'm proud to call partner, mentor, and a friend. So
Awesome.
that's Jim.
Okay.
And then there's Tarun Yadav.
Okay.
Tarun is my other co-founder. He came to me when I started BBE. He had just graduated from the University of Alabama. He is an engineer and the best in the world. And I might not have known that 20 years ago when I hired him, but he was my coworker at BBE when Procter and Gamble said to me, the largest marketer in the world is Procter and Gamble. They bring you Ivory soap and Bounty paper towels. And they had given me their first online video ad spend back in 2004. And they were excited about our work, but they were looking for a measurement solution. They wanted to know, when they ran ads with us and everyone else for that matter, Yahoo and Microsoft and AOL, they wanted to know how many people they reached with their ads. The same way Nielsen tells them on television how many people they reached. That didn't exist in streaming video.
Okay.
Tarun, hearing this, said, I will build it for you. And he built for us at BBE the very first measurement platform for streaming video. We called it Vindico, which means delivery. And Procter and Gamble was over the moon. They loved it. Instantly, in real time, they knew when they ran an ad on CBS.com, they knew exactly how many people they reached when they ran their commercials. I have been working with Tarun for 20 years since, and we have continually innovated and built on top of that tech where we are today at Blockboard. Wow. So those two people, Jim DePalma and Tarun Yadav, changed my life. They continue to change my life, and they inspire me every single day.
Wow. That is two definitely valuable relationships for you. That is awesome. That is awesome. So I want to dig a little deeper. So I want you to think of a example of where you personally, you got to make a really big impact. I mean, I'm sure you could come up with a number of examples, but where you personally got to make a really substantial impact, and maybe even in the moment, maybe it even surprised you a little bit, but you also know that that would have never been possible if not for your relationship with either one of the gentlemen that you've just been talking about. What is an example of something like that, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, well, I just gave you the first example of how Tarun
Yeah.
has built innovation for our industry.
Yeah.
So it even gets better now. I remember back then, the market of streaming video advertising was zero. I mean, it
Uh-huh.
didn't exist.
And
And
we're talking, so we're talking 2024, is that right?
2004,
Or excuse me, that's what I meant, 2004. Yeah. So we're talking basically 21 years ago.
right?
This was not even the thing. This just,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
I
Procter and
remember that.
Gamble gave us their first dollars, and everyone follows P&G, but no, there was no one saying, "Oh, wow, there's a lot of people to reach. Let's put our money and
Yeah.
invest our money in this internet video thing."
Yeah. Yeah.
So 20 years later, it's in the hundreds of billions of
Yeah.
dollars.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now, all of a sudden, Tarun, who built that first measurement platform 20 years ago, now we know the market is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. What we're focused on is the 120 billion of digital ad fraud. So when I turned to Tarun this time, I said, okay, we know how we got here. I believe, Tarun, as I read about blockchain, there is a solve here. Tell me from an engineering standpoint if you agree and if you can build it. So it took him a week. It took him a week. And he came back to me, Kevin. He said, yes, I could build that. I know how we can do this. And he chose Ethereum. Ethereum is best known for their Ether coin. Most people associate blockchain with cryptocurrency.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when they think of blockchain, they think of
Yeah.
cryptocurrency. They often think of Bitcoin. In this case, Tarun said Ethereum. That's the system of blockchain I'm going to use. I said, why? He said, because it's the easiest to build on. I found that interesting. And he said, I'm going to use that and what's called a smart contract. The smart contract, Kevin, is simply a piece of code. That's all it is. That code lives on Ethereum, and that code allows us to pre-verify all the ad calls across digital media. And wherever an ad is presented, we look at it in less than 33 milliseconds. We know it's a human being behind that, and
Wow.
we serve the ad.
Wow.
If it's a bot, we reject it in less than 33 milliseconds. So
Wow.
what the blockchain does is simply fast enough to beat the bots, to beat that $120 billion problem. And Tarun built this soup to nuts. And now we're off changing the world with this platform. And that is how Tarun has changed my life and our lives. We have 100 people here now. He's changed a lot of people's lives, not to mention our marketing partners who are enjoying this incredible new experience.
Yeah.
So Tarun Yadav truly has changed my life. And
Wow.
that's
Wow. That is awesome. That is awesome. And I mean, it's really fascinating to look back and look back 21 years ago when you started doing what you did in this field and look at where we've come. I mean, it's just absolutely, and and back then online video or even like what we're doing right now, this wasn't a thing,
right. Right.
and look at this. And now, because I mean, here you and I right now, we're on Zoom talking.
Right.
And we can talk with anybody anywhere in the world, right? I mean, just it's mind blowing to think about.
It really is.
And it reminds me back when I was a kid and I used to watch Star Trek and the communicators, and like now all that stuff, that's all become reality. It's
Very good perspective and
yeah,
very true. It's amazing. It really
yeah,
is.
yeah. Well, I really want to thank you for taking the time to have this conversation today, Matt. And for anybody that's listening to this going, man, Kev, I really like Matt. I love who he is. I love how he shows up. And man, I too am fascinated by what we're just talking about here. Is there any tools, any resources, any websites we can share with folks in case they want to
Yeah,
follow up
the,
and
the
stuff?
two best are my LinkedIn page, Matt
Okay.
Wasserlauf,
Yep.
or my company's website,
Okay.
myblockboard.com,
Okay.
myblockboard.com.
Very
So
good.
I have to, one day I'm going to go to Italy and visit blockboard.com, and I'm probably going to have to pay him a lot of money for that URL. But right now it's myblockboard.com.
Okay. Very good. Well, any last thing that you feel led to share, Matt, before we call it a wrap?
I mean, I understand I'm now 301 or 302 of your wonderful webcasts, your interviews. If there are any other entrepreneurs that want to share notes and compare notes, I'd love to hear from you. Kevin, this has been fantastic. And listen, it's truly a great time to be an entrepreneur.
Oh,
It
yes,
really
it
is.
is.
And
Yes.
so for those of us, you and your listeners, do it. Go get it. Get out there. This is your time. And I'm excited to be part of a new member of your community.
Yeah, well,
Thank you. Thank
same,
you.
same. Oh, you are so welcome. And my goal for this podcast has always been right from the get-go is, I wanted to give my guests, entrepreneurs like you, the opportunity to share your story and your experience around this topic of relationships and just honor the people that have been so valuable in your life and in your business. And then on the other side, I wanted to use these stories to just inspire other entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs to just place a more intentional focus on creating more real, meaningful, rewarding, and profitable relationships in their own lives. And with your help today, Matt, we definitely delivered on that. And so thank you once again. Really, really appreciate it and really appreciate you.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate